Hello, everybody. Welcome to a chapter of The Fires of Merlin. I know it's been quite a while. I was on vacation visiting some of my friends and didn't have access to my streaming stuff. But now we're back and we're at chapter 23 called Dagger Point. In the last chapter, Halia and Merlin made it to the city that's the first point on their journey that they need to get to reach the Oracle. And their overall mission is to defeat or confront this dragon Valdirg. But first, they have to get the Galator back because someone stole it from Domnu. So there's like a whole bunch of stuff in the way of getting this their mission completed. But anyway, here is chapter 23, Dagger Point. Steady now, growled the voice behind me. The dagger pressed tight against my back. I felt Halia standing by my side, as alert as if she were facing a pack of wolves. Water streamed off the overhanging slab that sheltered us, splattering my left arm. Trying to remain calm, I sucked in my breath. We have no wish to harm you, good sir. Let us go in peace. Fancy words. You must have been mentored by a bard. Despite the knife, I started. Something about the phrasing, if not the voice, sounded vaguely familiar, yet I couldn't quite place it. Tell me the truth, the man in the shadows demanded. Have you also learned to play the psaltery? Heedless of any danger, I whirled around. Kirpri! I threw my arms around him. Well met, declared the poet, tossing back his black hood. Halia gasped. You know this ruffian? The gray mane bobbed as Kirpri nodded. Well, enough to know that I don't like to use a dagger for anything more dangerous than slicing bread. He slipped the blade in his sheath. I do hope I didn't give you a fright. Oh no, snarled Halia, her eyes darting over the shadowy hollow. To my chagrin, she edged away from me. I had simply forgotten for a moment about the treacherous ways of men. Kirpri's eyes, deeper than pools, regarded her thoughtfully. You are a dear woman, I see, of the clan Melwyn Bremith, if I am not mistaken. She bristled, but said nothing. I am Kirpri, a humble bard. He bowed his head slightly. I am pleased to meet you, and my heart is pained, for I can see that my own race has brought suffering to yours. Her doe-like eyes narrowed. More than you could imagine. I am sorry. Kirpri regarded her for another moment, then turned to me. My disguise was necessary. As was that little scene in the tavern, when I feared you might come close enough to recognize me. Backod, the old waiter is a fool, I declared. Perhaps. He wiped a raindrop from the tip of his nose, as sharp as an eagle's beak. Yet he knows more than he lets on. Good fellow. Though his learning comes not from books, he is really, I think, a bard at heart. Though speech be unlearned, though wisdom he earned. He glanced again at the black cliffs. He has already helped me more than he knows, by sharing a few old stories about this land. But to avoid raising any suspicions, I have kept my own identity a secret. So Backod thinks I'm just a wandering bard. He has no idea who I really am, or what brings me here. The cold wind strengthened, and with it, the downpour. Thunder reverberated again and again among the craggy cliffs. As Halia and I both drew deeper into the hollow, trying to avoid the drenching gusts, I tried to catch her eye, yet she avoided my gaze. Shielding his brow from the rain, Kirpri peered out of the overhang at the massive clouds that had converged above the valley. The storm is worsening, I fear. We may be caught here for some time. Still disbelieving we were together again, I shook my head. What does bring you here, old friend? Are you, too, searching for the Galator? The poet's expression darkened. He moved to avoid a new trickle of water from the slab above us. No, my boy, not the Galator. What then? I seek the person responsible for the return of the Krelix. Halia tensed, as did I. The Krelix? What have you learned? Precious little, I am afraid. Gathering his cloak, he sat down on the wet stones, motioning for us to join him. I did so, while Halia remained standing apart. Suffice it to say that shortly after you and Rhea departed, I set out myself to learn whatever I could. Creelixes have been gone for ages. Their return threatens the life, not just of you, my boy, though that's weighed heavily on my mind, but of all creatures of magic, indeed, of this whole island. His bushy brows drew together. Rags and rat holes, it was hard to leave Ellen, yet I knew that my path would be dangerous, almost as dangerous as your own. Even so, she wanted badly, very badly, to come with me. If she hadn't already promised to wait for Rhea in the forest, I could have never stopped her. Sadly, I grinned. Rhea's promise to come back was the only thing that kept her from staying with me as well. No doubt, you two, as brother and sister, couldn't be closer. So thoroughly bound, as roots to the ground. In the shadows, Halia shifted her weight, and though I couldn't be certain, she seemed to edge a tiny bit closer. Kiepri's fist clenched. Devourers of magic! I've spent many hours wondering who or what could have brought even one of them back. A sizzling blast of lightning struck the mountain, followed by a crash of thunder. And I've concluded that there could be only one source so wicked, so cruel, to have done it. Before he could say the name, I did. Rita Gower. Grimly, he observed me. Yes, Merlin, the nemesis of anyone, and any land, he can't control. His head, gray hairs dripping, swung towards Halia. That's why he brought this terrible spells to this place, and why he tormented your clan into leaving your ancestral home. But why? She whispered from the shadows. This was our land, our home. The poet waited for another roll of thunder to pass. Because he needed no interference for a long time, long enough to breed and train the Creelixes, and your people knew too many of this mountain's secrets. You might have gotten in his way, for to bring back those beasts, he needed to tap the mountain's volcanic power, to unleash the Negatus Mysterium within its lava. That's always been the case. Clan Righteous, the people who bred Creelixes long ago, often made lava mountains their hideaways for the same reason. Lightning struck the cliffs, etching our faces. I remember, with a shudder, the emblem of Clan Righteous that Kiepri had described once before, a fist crushing a lightning bolt. So, do you think, I asked hesitantly, that Rita Gower has returned? I cannot say. He may still be too enmeshed in his battles with Dagda, relying instead on mortal allies. Or, he added gravely, he may be nearer than we know. The deep pools beneath his brows surveyed me. Now, my boy, you said you were seeking the Galator. I gazed out of the overhang into the darkening night, the wailing wind, the endless rain. To use its power, if I can, to stop Valdirg. Slowly he nodded. As your grandfather did, long ago. Yet, why here? Is it hidden among the cliffs? No, but an oracle is, the Wheel of Way. The wheel! Rags and rat holes, my boy! If the Wheel of Way exists, I'm not sure it does. I could be every bit... If the Wheel of Way exists, and I'm not sure it does, it could be every bit as dangerous as the dragon himself. Why would you ever risk such a thing? I have no choice. You always have a choice, even when it seems otherwise. He laid his hand on my shoulder. Tell me where you have been since we parted. As rain slashed against the stone above our heads, I took a deep breath and began my tale. I told of my trek with Rhea and my narrow escape from the living stone, my confrontation with Arnalda and her treachery. The poet's hand squeezed my shoulder tightly as I described the shock of how she destroyed my powers. And my staff. I went on, telling of my escape, of Aramon's wondrous gift, and our discovery of the mutilated eggs, the ghastly remains of Valdir's offspring. Then, to the surprise of both Kiepri and Halia, I described how I had found the last surviving hatchling, and tried to save its life. Although, all through that long night, and how, with no magic left in my hands, I had failed. Halia, as gracefully as a falling leaf, sat down beside me. You really did that? You never spoke of it. I didn't do anything worth telling about. You tried. Her eyes glistened in the waning light. To save a life you didn't need to save. Not the sort of thing most men would do. Perhaps not, observed Carefree, but it was the sort of thing a wizard might do. I bit my lip. Then, as much to change the subject as to finish my tale, I continued. Briefly, I sketched the attack by the second Krelix and Aramon's sacrifice. I described, though it made me feel nauseated, the terrible whirlwind, and at last our encounter with Domnu. As I felt Halia's warm breath upon my neck, I explained the disappearance of the glowing pendant, and the hope, however faint, that the oracle might help me find it again in time. After I concluded, the shaggy-haired bard watched me solemnly for a moment. The last hint of twilight ran along the ridges of his wet brow as he spoke again. Rags and rat-holes, my boy. You do seem to attract your share of difficulties. Halia managed to spare a smile. That he does. I struck my own thigh. I should start for the cliffs right now, storm or no storm. Whatever hours I spend huddled here are wasted. Halia started to speak, but a sudden clap of thunder cut her off. Finally, she asked, Would you risk climbing a sheer rock wall, slick with rain in the dead of night, with spirits of evil near at hand? You are more foolhardy than brave. I started to rise. But I must. She is right, Merlin. Again the poet's hand squeezed my shoulder, coaxing me back down. Here, in the time we have together, at least let me tell you what I know about the Wheel of Way. Reluctantly, I nodded. Gazing at the gloom beyond the dripping edge of the overhang, Carefree ran a hand through his wet hair. If indeed the wheel exists, and you can manage to find it, the legends say that you will face a choice, a difficult choice. The obstacle, said Halia, the one Domnu predicted. Impatiently, I shifted on the stones, wiping some drops of water off my chin. What choice? You will find that the wheel itself has not one voice, but several. One, and only one, of those is the voice of complete truth. All the others are to some degree false. If somehow you choose the correct voice, you will be allowed to ask any question and learn the answer. If, however, you choose the wrong one, you will die. With a groan, I shook my head. Is that all? No. Carefree paused, listening to the wind whistling on the crags. The legends say that the Wheel of Way will answer only one question of any mortal. So, if you get that far, you will be faced with a choice every bit as difficult as the first. The choice of your one question. Choose well, my boy, for after the wheel has answered, it will reveal no more to you forever. Halia bent closer to my ear. What will you ask if you are given the chance? For a moment I pondered in the darkness. The question I want to ask, long to ask, the question that haunts me more than those spirits up there. Is there any way I could regain my powers? Even if I'm never able to follow the pathway of Tuatha, even if I'm still destined to die in the jaws of that dragon, those powers were me. My head drooped. And yet I can't ask that question, for the fate of Finkyra, it seems, hinges on my asking something else. Where is the Galator? I blew a heavy breath. So the truth is, I really don't know what to ask. I could feel, more than see, Capre's gaze. Seek your answer within, my boy, for the choice is different for each different person. Take, for example, your sister, who longs to fly like a canyon eagle. No doubt she would ask how the Finkyrans in ancient times lost their wings, and how they could find them again. Working my stiff shoulders, I nodded. And what about you? I wouldn't ask where the Krelixes are hiding, for I think I can learn that on my own. Thanks to old Bakod, who still has more to show me about this place, if this storm ever ends, that is. I'm closer than ever now. Around the bend my trail shall end. No, the question that torments me the most, the one I would ask the oracle, is how to fight them. His frown deepened. I couldn't find anything about that in the texts. All I know is that the weaponry of magic applied directly is futile. The ancient mages who battled them must have found something else, something as ordinary yet as powerful as air itself. The trouble is, though, nothing but magic seems strong enough to defeat a whole mass of them. And a mass, I fear, is what we will have to face before this is over. I listened to the thunder echoing over the mountainside. If only I understood that phrase, the one at the end of the prophecy. Not that one that predicts that, if you do fight Valdriug, both of you will. No, not that. A power still higher. He nodded, stroking his chin. It could mean the Galator, or Negatus Mysterium, I suppose, or something else altogether. Gently, I spoke to Halia. Before I go, tell me, what would you ask the wheel? Her voice so soft I could hardly hear it above the storm, she answered, whether, in this world or another, I might ever find the joy in Aramon's dream, how could that ever be, without his hooves running beside my own? The mention of his name suddenly gave me an idea. It would be much easier for me to climb the cliffs, I said slowly, with 4 legs rather than 2. She stiffened. That's true. A rainy gust swept over us, and it would be easier still if you had someone with you, someone who knew the trails. No, Halia. And why not? Despite the bravery of her words, her voice quavered. You would rather go without me? I would rather know you're safe. Merlin, I'm coming. But you are the only hope you have. Hear me. This mountain has many trails, many caves, but only one is right. Knowing she spoke the truth, I could only nod. Slowly, all of us rose to our feet. We stood there, as silent as stones. Then Cairpri clasped our hands. In a hoarse whisper, he said, May Dagda be at your side, and at Finkyra's as well. Okay, my friends, I feel like we have a lot to get through for just having that amount of book left. So we shall see how this wraps up in the next couple days. And I will see you tomorrow for chapter 24, called The Climb. Have a wonderful night. Bye.